So here's everything you need to know about Audrey Hale's manifesto. She is the Nashville shooter. So a lot of people are calling her the trans shooter. Her full manifesto got released today. So we got to read all 90 pages of it for the first time. I did a full breakdown on my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. But here's the too long didn't read. Audrey Hale was an autistic lesbian who thought that she was trans, probably because she got introduced to queer theory on the internet. There's no indication that she got introduced to it in school. She said she didn't even find out about it until after school. She didn't even know she could transition her gender before that. So she probably got introduced to it on the internet, on Tumblr, and she started fixating on being a man. Basically, she was autistic. She was coming to terms with the fact that she was probably a lesbian. She was very, very, very into girls. She talks throughout the entire manifesto about wanting to sleep with girls, wanting to do all sorts of things to girls. We got to learn about some of her sexual fantasies in this manifesto. It was pretty graphic, definitely not safe for work, but the reason I say she's a lesbian is she was obviously very into girls, and I think that she got fixated on gender because of her autism, and that made her think that she was a boy. I don't think Audrey Hale was actually trans. In fact, the very last page of Audrey Hale's manifesto was her signing off with her name Audrey. She didn't use Audrey throughout the whole thing. She sometimes called herself Aiden. She sometimes called herself AE. But on the very last page of her manifesto before she committed the school shooting, she identified herself as Audrey, which means in her heart of hearts, she knew she was a girl. She still saw herself as a girl. She still identified with that name. And I think that that's pretty clear evidence of that. It also did say she did self-identify as queer in the manifesto. She also said something about being involved in radical politics, which to me tells me that she got introduced to queer theory, which is a far left political ideology that is often targeted at autistic kids to make them believe they're trans, make them believe they're non-binary, stuff like that. Again, I don't think she was actually trans. I think that she just got fixated on it because of her autism, and that's why she thought she was, because there's all sorts of subversive things on the internet, especially on Tumblr. Tumblr is a big kind of entryway to this ideology for a lot of people. But the big thing I want people to understand is this. Trans and queer are not the same thing. You do not need to be trans in order to be queer. Queer is a far left political ideology that is fundamentally designed to destabilize normativity, or all of the things that uphold capitalism in America. That is basically the American dream. That is private property ownership. Queer is explicitly designed to hasten the annihilation of capitalism. That is a quote from the Mary Nardi gang. They're the authors of the Queer Marxist Manifesto towards a queerist insurrection, and that is what the goal is. And so I don't believe Audrey Hale was trans. I think people who are saying that she was is wrong. She certainly had inclinations about wanting to have a penis, but I think that's because she was a lesbian that was also autistic, that was being sucked into queer theory ideology, and she got fixated on the fact that if she just had a penis, if she was just a boy, then she would be able to find love and she would be able to find people to have sex with. I think she also probably had clinical depression. There were probably other mental health problems going on. We do know she was treated at Vanderbilt Hospital for mental health issues leading up to the school shooting. So I certainly have questions about the type of health care she got, because it seems pretty obvious to me that this was an avoidable incident all around. But I do want people to know the difference between trans and queer. I think this was more about queer ideology than it was about trans ideology. I also want people to hear that I really don't think she got introduced to this in school. I'll blame schools for a lot of things, and there's a lot to rag on them for, and quite frankly, they deserve all of the criticism that they get online for teaching kids this ideology. Gender ideology is usually indoctrinating kids into this far left ideology. From the time they're 5 years old, they start learning this stuff in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. There are whole videos about this stuff on the internet. But it really does seem in this case that she didn't learn about it in school. And so I do think we need to be ethically honest. We also do need to, frankly, talk about the dangers of the internet and allowing kids access to the internet. Audrey Hale was an adult, obviously, so she was past the age of 18, so she was going to access this information at some point anyway. But the fact is that an awful lot of kids get pulled into gender ideology, not just in schools, not just in rainbow clubs or GSAs or any of those things. A lot of kids get pulled into queer ideology on sites like Tumblr, on different discords that they join, on Reddit, on all these groups on Facebook. Like there's all sorts of different things. I mean, I've worked with parents who had their kids, join all of these private groups on Facebook. They got invited by adults to join these groups, that they get sucked into the ideology because it's adults trying to groom kids, quite frankly. So there's all sorts of sites the kids can go to and find this information. And I do think that this is something that parents do need to be aware of, in that the internet is just as big a gateway to queer ideology as schools and as GSAs and as Rainbow Clubs. So we always need to be vigilant about that, and just make sure you know that let's be ethically honest about how we're analyzing the situation. Obviously, what happened with Audrey Hale is a tragedy. She should have gotten much better mental health care than she did. I do want to be careful about, being specific about the types of things that were going on. There doesn't seem to be evidence that she was on testosterone, which would lead to believe that she wasn't really trans, as in trying to transition her gender. She was queer, as in gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, trying to destabilize things with gender because she really wanted to be loved at the end of the day. That's the saddest thing about this. Audrey Hale wanted to be loved. She didn't feel like she had love from her parents. For a variety of reasons. It could have just been mental health issues. I'm not going to suggest that her parents were bad people. I don't know that. But she didn't feel like she got the love she needed from her parents. She felt like she was invisible in her community. She talked about being ignored and overlooked in the manifesto. And to me, I think that she probably did what she did because she felt ignored, she felt overlooked, and she wanted to go out with a bang because she had talked about dying throughout the entire manifesto. That was what she wanted. And I think it probably could have been avoided if people had taken a little bit better care of her, to be really honest about it. But I don't think she was on testosterone. I don't think she was trans. I think this is more a victim of queer ideology and autists specifically being targeted with queer ideology, which is something that I've covered extensively on my Substack. Again, that's Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Go there, search autistic sex education, and you'll see all the ways in which autistic kids are targeted with queer ideology. It's something I've documented very heavily, so you can find that information there. Anyway, that's what happened. More on the Substack. We'll see you soon.